This morning on Today's Health, we're talking about medical mistakes. They're responsible for 98,000 deaths every year. 8 years ago, 18-month-old Josie King was rushed to the hospital with first and second-degree burns. For 2 weeks, her family stayed right by her bedside. Then, just 2 days before Josie was supposed to go home, she was mistaken.
Oh, right. What did I do now? It's not my day, right? Full screen. There it is. Oh, now I got to click the go button again. Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you.
Given methadone while being severely dehydrated, and she died of cardiac arrest. Sorrel King is Josie's mother. She's written a new book, Josie's Story, a mother's inspiring crusade to make medical care safe. Dr. Nancy Snyderman is NBC's chief medical editor. Good morning to both of you. And I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I was reading about you, Sorrel, and you were not the kind of parent of a patient who just sat by and trusted everything that a doctor told you. You were an advocate for your daughter. You asked all the right questions, and still something like this happened. In addition to the incredible grief, you just must have been so angry.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically those two emotions, anger and grief. And, after we were planning a welcome home celebration. And then 2 days later, we were planning a funeral. So our lives were turned upside down. Anger and grief propelled us.
And this was a simple, it seems, mistake. And I know the people at Johns Hopkins Hospital did something that made a difference. And as a parent, I almost didn't understand exactly why it made a difference, and I hope you can explain it. They came to you and came to your home and they said, "We messed up."
Yeah.
Why was that so important?
Well, if they had slammed the door in our face, I don't think, honestly, good would have come of it. At the time when Josie died, they did come to our house. They apologized. They told the truth. And they promised to fix the problem. And at the time, I just assumed that was how all hospitals treated a patient when something bad happened. But as I got further into the healthcare industry, I learned that we got, maybe it wasn't special treatment, but we did get unusual treatment.
And Nancy, with the 98,000 deaths, I just said, right, why that simple apology often does not come.
When we make mistakes, and every doctor has, you are initially horrified that you could have harmed someone. And then there is this basic instinct of, well, maybe no one will know. But sometimes the mistakes are so horrific that we cost someone his or her life. And you have to find that very important moral center as an individual and as an institution to say, we own up to this. And I think it sounds so easy, but it's not. There's the threat of lawsuit. There's the threat of someone will hate me. There's the threat, this very human fallibility of how could I let something like this happen. In this case, it was a series of seemingly dumb things that all ended up to be catastrophic.
Okay, the apology aside, the most important, we want to get to the point where nobody has to apologize, where these mistakes aren't occurring. And why are they happening so often?
Because we're sloppy. Because we don't have checks and balances. You know, if you think about what an airplane pilot does to take off, whether he has flown a 747 100 times or not, there's a checklist and it's by rote. That's what we need to do in hospitals more often. Take a little bit of the nuance out of it and make it more step by step.
And I know that's one of the things you're really into. You wanted to take this pain and this anger and do something positive with me. So what are you trying to do?
My main message, and the message in my book, and my message all along to hospitals and healthcare people around the country for 8 years I've been doing this, is the communication piece and the culture piece. Now, the Joint Commission states that over 70% of all sentinel events are due to a breakdown in communication.
Right.
So for me as a mother, a non-healthcare person with no medical background, that's my message. Communicate better. Doctors and nurses, listen to the patient, listen to the family. Nurses, speak up when something's not right. Also, I try to educate the patient, educate the family. When you're at the bedside, keep track of information. Document everything. Write everything down.
And when you're the parent, you're vulnerable. When you're the sick person, you're vulnerable. So I always tell someone, take your friend and take your most obnoxious friend, because you need someone to be at the bedside.
But you know what? With all the information and education that doctors and nurses have, parents have a gut instinct about their own children. And you clearly had that. With Josie, you knew something wasn't right and tried to prevent it, and it just didn't work in this case.
I did. I mean, I did all the right things.
She did everything right. and things still went wrong. But you know what? Huge lesson here, because a mother did everything right. The medical establishment didn't. So the message here is listen to a mother, watch the patient, and everyone has to communicate better.
And once again, the book is called Josie's Story. Sorrel King, thanks very much. Doc,
Thanks,
good
Ben.
to see you as well.
Thanks,
We're going to be right back. This is Today on NBC.
Okay. What do you think? What's some of your thoughts? For Josie, she had been on a pain medication when she was in the ICU, but they had taken her off the pain medication. They also, for some reason, were limiting how much she could drink, and I'm not quite sure. You listened to a larger tape of that, right? It was a dehydration issue, but the mother knew something was wrong because when they were giving her a bath, she would start sucking on the washcloth. So they really weren't giving her enough to drink, and she became severely dehydrated. And then a nurse came in and gave her a dose of methadone that she wasn't supposed to have. And the mother said they had stopped the methadone. This is the pain medication. They had stopped the methadone, and the nurse still gave it anyway. And then a short time after that, she went into cardiac arrest, I think is how the story goes.
As a mother of a patient that's an adolescent, aren't you able to stop any treatment if you want?
She tried.
But the nurse,
She gave it anyway.
isn't that against the law?
Well, look what happened. And I guess the nurse somehow convinced her that she should have it. I think that's what happened. I mean, I haven't listened to the full tape. I mean, Sorrel King has spoken in front of Congress, I think, about patient safety issues and I think if you go online, you can hear her full description of what happened. On today's show, she didn't go that much into depth. But it was an issue with nursing, definitely an issue with nursing.
Well, I know that's the reason at Princeton we had Bradford Responsive Family Photography. They brought that video in and they showed it to all, well, they brought the longer one in.
The longer one.
They showed it to all staff and that's the reason they set it up.
Yep. This mother also started saying, something's wrong with my child, something's not right, and nobody listened to her until it was too late and this baby ended up dying. So, I mean, it's just horrific. And look at how this mother who has lost her child has turned her life around to fight for patient rights and patient safety. So, I mean, she speaks on patient safety all over the country now. So, you know, it's just amazing how you can take your grief and turn it into something that can make a difference. So, but I mean, it's just interesting. What do you think about all this and the difference that a nurse makes in this situation, right? And I think, you know, what Katie Couric said in the other one, noticing the subtle cues. There were cues in Josie that were missed. You know, the fact that she's sucking on a washcloth like there's no tomorrow tells you something. You know, we should be assessing our patients for dehydration and looking at intake and output. She was a burn patient. She would have been at risk for dehydration. They weren't assessing her properly. You know, so there's a lot of, like they said, dropped balls. And that's, in your practice, what you have to try to avoid. You have to be the best practitioner. Listen to your patients. Listen to their families. Don't blow them off. And I know it's going to be so easy to do that in real practice, because you're going to see other nurses doing that, not really looking at your patients and their situations. But you don't want to be part of what this is all about. And it's that prevalent that you could be. There's mistakes all the time, every day, and we can try to prevent them.
I think I'd be slightly embarrassed being her, so they said it happened at Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins
I think I'd be really
Hospital.
embarrassed working there, because it's not like some little hospital in some city, you know,
It's
it's like
one of the
well-known-
foremost medical centers in the
You
country.
know, like,
But the interesting thing is that they did admit they made a mistake.
they took ownership.
They took ownership. They
And
went to
actually,
the
yeah.
family. They could have,
Yeah.
believe me, and I'm not referring to any hospital in this area, but I have worked at hospitals that have pushed things under the carpet. Oh, I have.